You tie everything back in, and how did you decide to sort of make it part of this Mind Palace journey and weave it into where the last episode left off?
Well, it's sort of the idea began as a not really as a joke, just something we sort of batted around with fun, and we thought it was fantastic that really the only two Holmes and Watson had ever done modern day and period were Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, and we thought it'd be brilliant. You know, to go really right back to the beginning and sort of treat it, if we'd had the idea to just do Sherlock Holmes as it usually is, it would still be, that was the show we would have done. So it wasn't suddenly very sort of fusty and slow paced, etc. It would be Sherlock, but in that period. But we just had this narrow window where we could make a special, everyone's diaries worked. And it was kind of the only time we could tell that story was in those 5 minutes before the plane lands. And then we just obviously had to fib about it and just say it was a standalone because it looked like we'd gone crazy. Yeah. But it was so much fun, wasn't it? I mean, it was the really odd thing is that when we first began, quite a lot of press did ask us, you know, how can you do Sherlock Holmes without gas lamps and hansom cabs? And then we did some press for the special, and a couple of them said, well, how can Sherlock Holmes exist in a world without iPhones? Oh, well, we've done something right. There is some precedent for it.
It was great. It was such fun to play. I mean, it's a joy that we managed to sort of straddle both eras, and I'm very happy in Victorian garb. Not least because we talked about the coat a lot, so that doesn't appear too much in that one. But the hair, it's just so much easier having slick back hair. I'll tell you, I spent longer in that chair getting my hair cute. What is it? Diffused in curls?
What is the Sherlock hair process for cosplayers?
It takes too long.
Oh, they all know. It's twist
to
and fuse. Yeah. I think it's got its own hashtag somewhere. Yeah.
I noticed Victorian Sherlock was a little bit different than modern day
As
Sherlock.
it should be, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, he projects with some degree of accuracy into a past. I mean, you know, you've got Molly Hooper pretending to be a man. You've got all sorts of things that are slightly sort of unfeasible in a real Victorian era, I suppose. Though, no, it's not necessarily true. But yeah, as far as Sherlock goes, yeah, I wanted him to be more stiff. I wanted, if that is possible, with sort of a, you know, straighter back, and just a little bit crueler and of that era. So a little bit more clipped in his dialect, a little bit more sort of crisp and polite to what era he was in, and. Yeah, there's something slightly more severe. The edges that have been rounded, I think, by what's the overarching humanization of him in our version were kind of retrograded a bit, and that was fun to play with. Really good fun to play with. And
we also ended up with an unexpected thing, really, in that last scene where the credits roll and then it suddenly goes back to Baker Street, and Sherlock says to John, this is my idea of what the future might be like. So, which really poses the possibility that the entire series, our series, is just the fevered imaginings of a real Victorian man. So maybe the whole thing is just a Victorian man's idea of the future.
Don't stop.
So I guess we can infer that because you're playing with time, that it's technically a Doctor Who crossover.
It's as close as you'll ever get.
But it does seem to allow you the possibility to jump back and forth in future episodes. Do you foresee that ever?
I don't think so. I think that was the time we could do it, and the obvious one to do is to do it in the original, authentic Victorian year, just to see it once that way. Mark and I are of course obsessed with the idea that one day we could do the 1940s propaganda movie where they fight the Nazis like Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. But you know, if we announce that, we've lost our minds. So it's not out of the question.
Got 2017. What is the relationship dynamic between Sherlock and Mycroft is a little bit different in Abominable Bride. So I'm thick-headed, so I sort of missed what is happening with the pudding, and what is that dynamic?
Well, in the original stories, Mycroft is enormously fat, and obviously to go into the Victorian one, we thought we'd go for the full Mr. Creosote. We talked about that for years.
Yeah.
And how much fun that would be. And then this idea of that they actually have a bet on how long he's going to live.
That's what I'm wondering about. Why
Well, because the whole thing is in Sherlock's head. He's just basically having some
Be really
fun.
cruel.
Yeah. What we have to imagine is that the whole thing is actually taking place at lightning speed in his head. But along the way, he's having fun. He's
Turning his brother into Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, he's making John a bit more like Nigel Bruce, etc., and having fun. But then that's one of the ways he's just poking the finger at his brother.
But also,
and it was meant to be funny, Chris.
It is funny. It was funny.
Meant to be a joke. It just asked us to
I just
explain
took it
a
as
joke in public in front of 7,000 people. We're
Listen.
humiliated now.
Stephen, I just took it as a very serious, dramatic moment.
Which you asked about.
No, the reason that I asked is because I was trying to figure out, and now that you've explained, I understand that the relationship is so kind of toxic that Mycroft would usher his own death to win a bet with his brother, essentially.
Why not?
So what can we expect from Mycroft in season 4?
Less pudding.
Let's go ahead.
Trimmer.
Can't tell you really. We have a lot of fun
Me too.
this season, and a lot of things are resolved. A lot of things are raised.
I'm not saying anything. Yeah, it's definitely it's an evolving relationship.
But you
That's what
started
I'm saying.
peeking into, toward the end of last season, you really did start peeking into the idea that Mycroft really loves him. And he even...
Of course he loves
Yeah.
him. It's like he...
And that goes both ways, definitely. You know.
He wants him on the inside of the tent, hissing out. He can't bear the...
Not literally, that would be strange.
He can't bear the fact that this amazingly intelligent brother is not part of his establishment. That's what it is. It all comes from a place of caring. It's just he doesn't really know how to express it.
That's in the first episode.
Yeah.
In the very first episode, it's cold and strange what he does, but he is worried about his brother. And that's why he asked Dr. Watson to spy on him. It's not a conventional thing to do with the family member, but he's not a conventional person. He always cares.
Yeah. Recently there was a picture of Sherlock with a dog. So
Yes.
what can you tell us about
It's a bloodhound.
It was the best thing we could do on the day with that dog was take photographs. It wouldn't fucking move.
It wouldn't move.
I mean, using expression, we were sold a plot, but
The stage directions were, Mary gets dragged around London by a voracious bloodhound, and it literally, but the owner said, yeah, it doesn't like concrete much.
And it doesn't like pavement.
Pavement.
Doesn't
Doesn't like people.
Doesn't like people.
We were in a market in
Sky.
London.
It's not an urban dog. Brilliant.
Fantastic. We found our perfect match for an urban scene with dogs that's supposed to drag.
There's one point I was literally pulling and I pulled and just ended up on my back just because he just wouldn't move. He was lovely, very affectionate, but just sat there for the whole time. And we ended up getting a bit hysterical, didn't we? We were kind of just like, Ben and I were going, this is insane.
We have to work very, very hard to play Sherlock Holmes in London and not feel an iota of being self-conscious. And then when you have a bit of slathering concrete on the end of a lead, it just loses all semblance.
Then in the end, you remember, I had to have like a prop man, and he was holding the lead, and he was out of shot, pulling me along because the dog was over there having a fag and a pint of beer.
When you see the episode, there's actually a scene about that Mark and I wrote standing on the pavement to account for the fact that the dog wouldn't move.
Talk about improvisation. That was a hastily improvised. We actually had to account for the fact that the dog would not do what we're supposed to do. So it's actually the nicest bit in it. I think this dog is just hopeless. We have to account for the fact it's a totally static dog. Never work with anyone.
What about the fact, getting into the next season and a baby, and how does that change the dynamic?
Yeah, I know, how? It's amazing, isn't it? Can't say, what? I can't say.
Without specifics, how do you think?
Well, we fight, she's pregnant when we open the series. She's pregnant, she's more pregnant than an elephant. She's got the longest gestation period I've ever known.
It is an elephant.
There is, I don't know, the baby, the features, the baby features. And also never worked with babies either.
Actually,
I had,
compared to the dog, the
I was
baby's
wearing a
fine.
navy blue shirt, and God bless her, she was a beautiful baby, or he. Projectile vomited all over me.
I went over and the baby went over and had a cigarette. I'm done.
Well, we used many babies, and they were all very, very sweet and lovely. But it's very difficult trying to get, when you're doing a scene when you're supposed to be carrying a baby and doing stuff. And it's the end of the day, and they're tired, obviously, because they're babies. And
But newborn babies, it surprises me that somebody would give their newborn baby over for you.
Yeah.
You're the producer, you are them. Someone up there to give up a gift. No, it's a strange thing, and obviously babies are on a schedule, so it's always tricky. You can't match necessarily what we're doing a film and doing the baby's routine. So
You have a baby now.
Do you want to know how little you're learning about series 4? We are actually talking about working with children and animals. That's the level of secrecy.
Well, then what could you say about season 4? Because I think part of the
Nothing.
Nothing. We're not saying anything.